Welcome to this section of the course, The Brief History of Investing. Before we dive into charts, strategies, and financial concepts, it's important to step back and look at where it all began. Because investing isn't just about numbers and markets. It's about people, ambition, risk, and the timeless desire to build a better future. Many people jump into investing today with little understanding of where the systems they rely on actually came from. But to truly become a confident, capable investor, you need more than surface-level knowledge. You need context. You need to understand the why behind the markets. And that understanding starts with history. Why is learning about the history of investing so important? Because history teaches us perspective. It reveals how markets were built, how financial tools evolved, and how every breakthrough, from ancient trade routes to modern stock exchanges, was driven by human ingenuity, curiosity, and yes, sometimes greed. It also shows us that today's markets are not the result of random chance. They are the product of centuries of development, centuries of experiments, mistakes, innovations, and bold ideas. When you understand where investing came from, you realize that market booms and busts aren't new. Financial speculation didn't start with cryptocurrency. Risk and reward have been part of the human story since the first merchants loaded ships with spices and sailed off into the unknown. How does this knowledge make you a wiser investor today? Simple. It gives you perspective. It tempers your emotions. It helps you avoid the common trap of believing that the present moment is entirely unique, that today's market challenges are unprecedented or unsolvable. The truth is, markets have always gone through cycles. Innovations have always disrupted the status quo. Speculation has always existed alongside legitimate investment. The difference is, smart investors recognize the patterns, learn from history, and stay grounded when others lose their way. In this section, we'll take a guided journey from the very beginning of investing to the markets of today. We'll touch on the earliest forms of trade and barter, when human survival depended on simple exchanges of food, tools, and resources. We'll follow the story through the rise of ancient marketplaces, the birth of currency, and the creation of some of the first formal investment agreements in civilizations like Venice and Amsterdam. You'll learn how stock markets were born, how companies first sold shares, and how global trade fueled the need for organized financial systems. This is not just a history lesson. It's a foundation for everything else you'll learn in this course, and an essential step in becoming a wiser, more confident investor. Let's get started. Thousands of years ago, long before the time of bustling cities with buildings and stores, humanity's first steps toward commerce began in a world profoundly different from today. People organized their lives around survival, either moving constantly in search of resources or establishing communities in fertile regions. Life was primitive, intimately connected with the land and animals around them. Hunting, gathering, fishing, and basic agriculture formed the backbone of existence. Tribes had to be resourceful, adapting constantly to their environment to ensure survival. Every day was a delicate balance between abundance and scarcity, with each member playing a critical role in the prosperity and stability of their community. As communities grew and evolved, so did their needs, sparking the birth of trade through two fundamental methods. The most straightforward was bartering. Imagine you had furs and your neighbor had pottery. Even though your items were different, you could trade based on a mutual understanding of value, necessity, and availability. This direct exchange of goods made immediate sense, offering each person something they lacked in return for something they had in surplus. Bartering was more than trade. It was an art form, a negotiation, and an essential part of daily life. Communities developed intricate methods for determining fair values, relying heavily on perception, need, and social interaction. It wasn't just economic. It was deeply social, often strengthening bonds between tribes and promoting peace and cooperation. But there was another, more nuanced way of exchanging value, something deeper than the exchange of physical items: the concept of social credit. In social credit, the currency wasn't tangible items. It was trust, honor, and reputation. Two individuals could agree on an exchange without immediate payment. Instead, a promise was made, a commitment to repay at a future date with goods, services, or aid. This system reflected an early understanding of economics where the community itself became an informal bank, lending trust, managing debts, and ensuring collective prosperity. If someone failed to uphold their commitment, their social standing suffered immensely. Word traveled quickly throughout the tribe, and the consequences were severe. Without trust, survival itself became jeopardized as others refused future engagements. Reputation was everything. The tribe's network of trust was carefully nurtured, as everyone's well-being depended heavily on mutual cooperation and accountability. This provided a powerful incentive for honesty and integrity, shaping social interactions profoundly. This early form of social credit was revolutionary. It enabled communities to pool their resources and skills and tackle challenges impossible to face alone. It fostered cooperation, fairness, and social cohesion, laying the foundation for what was to come. These principles built trust and accountability within the tribe, creating a powerful incentive for honesty and integrity. As time passed, the simple tribal systems of barter and social credit evolved into increasingly complex communal societies. With this growth, the demands on trade and commerce expanded dramatically, calling for more sophisticated systems of exchange. Society was transforming, fueled by the rapid expansion of communities, greater specialization in skills, and increased production of goods. The next radical transformation took place nearly 5,000 years ago, in what we now call Mesopotamia. It was in Mesopotamia, the land between the rivers, that the world's first great marketplaces began to emerge. Cities grew, trade flourished, and for the first time in history, entire communities depended on organized systems of commerce. The simple local exchanges of earlier tribes were giving way to something far more complex: bustling trade networks that connected people, goods, and ideas across vast distances. In ancient Mesopotamia, around 3000 BC, it became clear that bartering and social credit alone could no longer effectively support the expanding economy. Markets were bustling, trade was thriving, and new trade routes were connecting distant lands, creating a need for a more efficient, reliable method of exchange, a concept that would fundamentally alter the course of human history: money. The earliest known form of money emerged in Mesopotamia as clay balls known as bullae. These innovative clay containers held tokens representing commodities such as grain, livestock, and other essential goods. They symbolized items being traded, creating tangible and reliable records of transactions. As commerce became more complex and extensive, this practice evolved. Instead of placing tokens inside clay balls, symbols were impressed directly onto the surfaces of clay tablets, eliminating the need for physical tokens and enhancing efficiency. These clay tablets became early abstractions of value, widely accepted and trusted in trade. They standardized transactions, creating transparency and consistency that traders and merchants greatly valued. Commerce flourished as the standardized symbols allowed for clearer communication across diverse regions and cultures. Although clay tablets weren't coins or paper money, they possessed essential properties of money: widespread acceptance, recognized value, and practicality in trade. Importantly, they allowed debts and credits to be formally documented and easily transferred. Traders settled debts simply by transferring these tablets to others, who could subsequently use them to satisfy their own obligations. An early form of credit and debt circulation that streamlined economic interactions. These tablets became indispensable to Mesopotamian society, meticulously inscribed using cuneiform script, a groundbreaking form of wedge-shaped writing. The tablets detailed every transaction meticulously, including parties involved, goods or services exchanged, and their agreed-upon values. Beyond facilitating commerce, these tablets served as vital administrative tools, capturing various facets of daily life and governance, further cementing their importance. For centuries, clay tablets remained the lifeblood of Mesopotamian commerce. Traders, merchants, and ordinary citizens trusted their accuracy implicitly. Yet despite their widespread use and acceptance, significant drawbacks became increasingly apparent. Clay tablets were inherently fragile. If broken, the records were irrecoverably lost. Additionally, they were heavy, cumbersome to transport over long distances, and highly vulnerable to forgery. Fraudulent tablets were easily produced, creating confusion and potential disputes among traders. Recognizing these severe limitations, the Mesopotamians sought a more robust, reliable solution, a material that was durable, easily transportable, and resistant to fraud. The material they chose ultimately changed the course of history. They chose silver, and it became the chosen medium of exchange. Though historical records do not fully clarify the exact rationale, silver successfully addressed many issues inherent to clay. It was durable, resistant to damage, highly portable, and conveniently divisible into precise, measurable quantities. This pivotal transition marked a profound shift. Silver coins and bars served not only as a dependable medium of exchange, but also as a consistent unit of measurement. Unknowingly, the Mesopotamians had unlocked another critical principle of money: the ability to represent a stable, universally recognized measure of value. This transformative innovation profoundly reshaped economic transactions, societal structures, and cultural interactions. It facilitated greater trade volumes, enabled more sophisticated economic planning, and significantly expanded cultural and economic exchanges between distant regions. As this revolutionary concept spread beyond Mesopotamia, other societies eagerly adopted and refined it further. Soon, in another place known as Lydia, people would introduce another groundbreaking advancement: the first known coins. The idea of a coin would enhance reliability, standardization, and acceptance. These newly created coins would further revolutionize commerce, laying the groundwork for the complex monetary systems we use today. Next, let's take a deeper look into these new Lydian coins, where humanity stepped into an unprecedented era of expanded trade, enhanced connectivity, and endless innovation. This incredible evolution, beginning with Mesopotamia's clay tablets and silver bars, would reshape human history and lay the foundational structure for more complex economic systems to come. With the birth of these new Lydian coins, humanity stepped into an unprecedented era of expanded trade, enhanced connectivity, and endless innovation. These coins weren't merely currency. They marked a revolutionary advancement in the way value was exchanged, offering unprecedented reliability, standardization, and trust across vast trading networks. This innovation tore down many of the barriers that had previously limited commerce, allowing merchants to transact more freely and confidently over greater distances. At the heart of Lydia's economic success was King Alyattes II, a forward-thinking ruler who truly understood the power of trade and the need for efficient systems of exchange. Around 600 BCE, during his reign, Lydia introduced a groundbreaking innovation: the world's first standardized metal coins. Made from electrum, a naturally occurring alloy of gold and silver found abundantly in the region, these coins combined practicality with real value. This advancement didn't just simplify trade, it transformed commerce, setting a new standard that would influence economies for centuries to come. These newly minted Lydian coins, known as staters, solved several critical economic problems of the time. They were standardized, portable, divisible, exchangeable, valuable, and, importantly, fungible. Each coin represented a reliable unit of measure that could be easily recognized, transported, and exchanged. Gone were the cumbersome complexities of bartering large or fragile commodities. These coins simplified transactions and greatly expanded commercial possibilities. If we look into each one of these characteristics of the stater coin, we can see why this was groundbreaking. The portability of Lydian coins significantly boosted long-distance trade. Merchants could now travel greater distances with wealth stored securely in small, lightweight coins that everyone would be able to recognize, rather than bulky goods. Another key part was their divisibility, allowing for precise and fractional exchanges, making them highly flexible for transactions of any size, whether large-scale trade or daily market activities. Perhaps most importantly, Lydian coins served as a trustworthy store of value. Crafted from precious metals, these coins were durable and retained their worth over time, offering individuals a secure means of saving and accumulating wealth. Lastly, the key advantage was their fungibility. Each stater coin was interchangeable with another of identical weight and marking. This ensured confidence and reliability in the monetary system, as every coin carried an identical, guaranteed value. The introduction of coined money dramatically reshaped Lydian markets, propelling trade to new heights. Lydia's marketplaces thrived, bustling with merchants, traders, and consumers who actively engaged in vibrant economic exchanges. These markets not only facilitated commercial transactions, but also served as vital centers for social interaction, cultural exchange, and the sharing of crucial information about pricing, supply, and demand. This dynamic environment sparked innovation and growth, solidifying Lydia's role as a key economic hub of the ancient world. While detailed records of Lydian market regulations remain scarce, it's clear that the introduction of coined money was a game-changer for Lydia. These standardized coins built trust among merchants and market participants, making trade more reliable and efficient. This innovation not only fueled Lydia's economic growth, but also strengthened social cohesion and cultural integration within its bustling marketplaces. As Lydia's success with coined money became widely known, this revolutionary idea began to spread beyond its borders. Neighboring civilizations took notice, sparking a wave of adoption and adaptation that would transform economies across the ancient world. This transition phase set the stage for the next great leap in monetary evolution, one that would take shape in the thriving marketplaces of ancient Greece. As the Lydian coins traveled beyond their homeland, another civilization embraced this powerful concept and took it even further: ancient Greece. The Greeks saw immense potential in coined money, quickly adapting and refining the Lydian innovation, paving the way for profound economic advancements. Greek coinage, notably the famous drachma, became renowned for its superior craftsmanship, consistency, and uniformity. Initially inspired by the electrum stater coins from Lydia, Greek coin makers began perfecting their techniques, transitioning predominantly to silver coins. Athens, in particular, became celebrated for its iconic silver tetradrachm coins, famously adorned with the owl symbol representing wisdom and prosperity. These Athenian coins became not only valuable, but also symbols of trust and quality throughout the ancient world. The widespread acceptance of Greek coins was transformative. Traders and merchants quickly adopted the coins into daily life, using them seamlessly within domestic markets and international trade routes. Greek coins gained significant popularity outside Greece itself, as their reputation for purity and standardized value reassured foreign traders from distant lands. This international acceptance dramatically expanded trade possibilities and brought about a radical shift in economic thinking and practices, facilitating an unprecedented flow of goods, ideas, and wealth across borders. The Greek innovation of standardized coinage profoundly influenced commerce, enabling efficient and expansive trade throughout the Mediterranean and beyond. Unlike the localized use of coins in Lydia, Greek coins became universally recognized across various city-states and trading regions. significantly enhancing economic integration and mutual trust among diverse communities. Greek city-states minted their own distinct coins, each marked with unique designs and symbols, reflecting their heritage and identity. Typically crafted from gold, silver, or bronze, these coins featured powerful imagery, gods, rulers, mythological figures, and emblematic landmarks, asserting the cultural prestige and influence of each issuing city-state. These carefully minted coins served multiple essential functions within the Greek economy. They acted as a reliable medium of exchange, simplifying commerce compared to the cumbersome barter system of the past. The coins provided a universally understood unit of account, offering standardized measures of value for goods and services, significantly streamlining market transactions. Furthermore, Greek coins served as dependable stores of value due to their precious metal content retaining intrinsic worth over time. This quality made them invaluable for saving, accumulating wealth, and long-term economic stability. Greek coins profoundly stimulated economic activity, integrating markets and fostering rapid growth in commerce within and between city-states. This facilitated market expansion, cultural exchange, and strengthened political relationships, enhancing unity and cooperation among the diverse Greek cities. The regulation of coin production by Greek city-state authorities ensured consistency in weight, purity, and overall quality. Magistrates meticulously oversaw coin minting, preserving the integrity and universal trust placed in these precious tokens of value. Coins also provide a tangible means for city-states to exhibit their wealth, power, and cultural achievements to the broader world. Yet the impact of Greek coinage extended far beyond economic exchanges alone. Coins became cultural ambassadors, spreading Greek ideals, influence, and imagery throughout the ancient world, setting the stage for a new era of interconnectedness. And nowhere was this impact more clearly observed than in the heart of ancient Greek society, the bustling, vibrant marketplace known as the agora. With Greek coins now embraced with the development of the agora, humanity had entered a revolutionary period of commerce, one that would reach new heights, forever reshaping the way societies interact, trade, and prosper. The agora was the beating heart of the Greek city-state, a place where commerce, politics, culture, and spirituality intertwined in a dynamic dance of daily interactions. Merchants, traders, and craftsmen from across Greece and beyond gathered daily, offering a dazzling array of goods and services, from essentials like grain, olive oil, and wine, to finely crafted pottery, exquisite jewelry, and robust metalwork. The agora was a place where the needs and desires of Greek society were abundantly met. Market stalls brimmed with goods, each merchant passionately advocating the quality and value of their offerings. Yet commerce was just one facet of this vibrant space. The agora was equally a social and intellectual center, buzzing with conversation and ideas. Citizens routinely engaged in lively debates, discussions, and exchanges of ideas about everything from politics and philosophy to daily life and community concerns. Indeed, the agora was a stage where prominent philosophers, statesmen, and thinkers regularly addressed the public, using persuasive rhetoric to shape public opinion, policy, and cultural norms. It was here that Socrates, Plato, and countless other influential figures would gather audiences eager to discuss and debate the pressing issues of their time. Beyond trade and discourse, the agora also served as a critical center for justice and civic administration. Courts convened within its boundaries, resolving disputes and maintaining social harmony. Important public buildings and institutions were strategically located around the agora, making it the administrative and political nucleus of the city. Spirituality was also woven deeply into the fabric of the agora. Temples dedicated to revered gods and goddesses stood prominently around the marketplace, signaling its sacred nature. Religious ceremonies, festivals, and rituals regularly took place here, reinforcing the connection between divine favor, civic prosperity, and daily life. Importantly, The agora symbolized the democratic ideals that defined Greek society. As an open, inclusive space accessible to all citizens, it embodied democracy's core principle: active civic engagement. Here, every citizen had the opportunity to participate directly in shaping their city's future, making decisions and exchanging ideas in a shared public arena. While formal investment structures as understood today didn't exist, the agora nonetheless facilitated numerous entrepreneurial ventures and economic opportunities. Merchants and traders regularly invested capital and resources into ventures, buying goods from distant regions, transporting them, and selling them in the agora to earn profits. Artisans and skilled craftsmen similarly invested their time, labor, and resources, setting up workshops and stalls within the agora. Their investments in raw materials, tools, and expertise translated directly into thriving business enterprises, enhancing their personal wealth and community prosperity. Moreover, intellectual investment thrived here as well. Philosophers and teachers established schools and lecture spaces nearby, attracting students who invested their time and resources in gaining knowledge and education, enriching the cultural and intellectual landscape. Collaborations and partnerships flourished in this lively marketplace. Merchants, traders, and entrepreneurs joined forces, pooling resources for larger ventures, such as financing trading expeditions, creating extensive trading networks, or investing collectively in community projects that benefited everyone. As we have now learned, the agora was not merely a marketplace. It was a crucible of innovation, entrepreneurship, and communal enterprise, laying essential groundwork for future economic systems and investment practices. Yet, as influential as the agora was in ancient Greece, its legacy did not stop there. The vibrant economic, social, and political concepts cultivated here traveled far beyond Greek borders, influencing other great civilizations of the ancient world, most notably the emerging empire of ancient Rome. In Rome, as we will learn in the next section, took these ideas further, blending Greek innovations with their own unique approaches to governance, commerce, and finance, ultimately transforming the ancient world's economic landscape in profound and lasting ways. As Greek innovations spread westward, ancient Rome embraced these ideas, adding their unique contributions and taking economic practices to an entirely new level. Romans recognized not only the value of coins, but also the potential of collective investments to achieve ambitious projects and profitable ventures. The earliest documented accounts of structured investing arose from maritime ventures in ancient Rome. Wealthy Romans discovered that pooling their financial resources allowed them to undertake extensive and expensive maritime expeditions, ventures filled with risk, but offering potentially enormous returns. Investors purchased shares known as partes, each representing partial ownership of a vessel and its cargo. This revolutionary arrangement marked a significant leap forward, allowing investors to spread financial risk while maintaining the potential for considerable profits. While ship captains and their crews managed daily operations at sea, wealthy investors provided the critical financing behind these ventures. Their partes, representing ownership stakes, could be bought, sold, or traded among other investors, introducing a new level of flexibility and liquidity to Roman financial markets. Over time, share trading became a thriving marketplace in its own right. The value of partes fluctuated based on the perceived success or risk of a voyage, allowing investors to buy and sell their stakes even before the ships returned, locking in profits or limiting potential losses. This growing marketplace introduced an early form of price discovery, as perceptions of each voyage's profitability directly influenced the value of partes. Successful expeditions drove up demand for shares, while risky or troubled voyages saw their values decline. As investing matured, Romans expanded these practices into larger, legally recognized joint stock companies, allowing individuals to pool significant resources for ambitious projects that no single investor could fund alone. These early joint stock companies played a vital role in financing public works like aqueducts, roads, and major trade operations. Investors could purchase and trade shares in these ventures, creating an early, though informal, stock market. While lacking the strict regulations of modern exchanges, this system allowed Romans to share in large-scale profits without participating directly in management or daily operations. These early marketplaces were more than hubs of trade. They became engines of innovation and collaboration, laying the foundations for future economic systems. The ideas born through shared investment and cooperation would not remain confined to local ports and markets. They would evolve and expand, shaping the vast economic reach of the Roman Empire itself. Building on these early precedents of shared investment and trust, Rome adapted and expanded these ideas, profoundly influencing the course of economic history. By embracing collective investment, Romans unlocked new possibilities for funding large, risky ventures. Maritime expeditions became a prime example, with investors purchasing ownership shares in ships and cargo that allowed them to share both the risks and rewards of long-distance trade. This model not only fueled economic expansion, but also laid the foundation for more sophisticated investment practices to emerge in the years ahead. As share trading expanded, so did the need for structure and trust. Though informal, rules and customs gradually developed to protect investors and promote fairness. Trades were executed through personal agreements, often with the help of brokers who used their networks to connect buyers and sellers. With no formal enforcement, successful transactions relied entirely on reputation and keeping one's word. In this environment, negotiation became the heart of price discovery. With no fixed rates, prices were shaped by dialogue, reputation, market demand, and supply. Skilled investors relied on experience and relationships to gauge risk and returns, while trust and personal integrity remained critical to closing deals. With money and reputation at stake, disputes were inevitable. Most were resolved through informal arbitration, where trusted individuals mediated based on shared customs and expectations. Legal authorities stepped in only for more serious conflicts. Over time, an unwritten code of ethics emerged. Honesty, fairness, and transparency became essential. Those who violated these norms risked losing their reputation, and with it, their place in the market. As markets grew more complex, Rome introduced official oversight, appointed supervisors, enforced standards, mediated disputes, and worked to maintain fair, orderly conduct. Trusted for their expertise and integrity, these officials served as early stewards of market trust, helping to prevent fraud and manipulation. Though less formal than today's exchanges, these early systems laid the groundwork for modern investing. Market supervision, ethical expectations, and social accountability became the backbone of Roman financial culture. Through structure, trust, and innovation, the Romans created an investment environment that would influence markets for centuries to come. Even after Rome's decline, these ideas endured, quietly shaping the next great chapter of financial history that would emerge along the bustling canals of Venice. Let's explore how those foundations evolved in the heart of this remarkable maritime republic. When the Roman Empire collapsed, much of Europe's organized trade and commerce unraveled with it. Roads crumbled, markets scattered, and Rome's sophisticated investment partnerships faded into memory. Yet even as empires fell, the hunger for goods, wealth, and opportunity never truly disappeared. In the fragmented world that followed, new centers of trade began to emerge, often shaped not by imperial power, but by geography, resilience, and ingenuity. Nowhere was this more evident than in Venice, a city born from the lagoons of northeastern Italy, which would grow to command the commercial lifelines of the Mediterranean. Out of this power vacuum emerged a new maritime powerhouse, Venice, the Queen of the Adriatic. Perfectly situated between Europe and the East, Venice transformed its geography into an unrivaled advantage. becoming the dominant trading hub of the Middle Ages. While other cities struggled to restore order after Rome's collapse, Venice built a thriving economy, forging direct trade links with Constantinople, the Levant, and beyond. Its political independence allowed the city to chart its own course, while maritime innovation and shipbuilding expertise gave Venetian merchants a decisive edge on the high seas. At the heart of this success was not simply superior technology or clever navigation. It was Venice's financial systems. These mechanisms made it possible to fund large-scale expeditions, bringing goods from the East to European markets, and returning profits to those willing to take the risk. The financial engine behind Venice's global reach was an arrangement called the Commenda, also known as the Colleganza. This system connected investors, called commendators, with merchants, known as merchant adventurers, who were willing to brave the dangers of long-distance trade. The commendator risked their money, but not their life. The merchant risked their time, energy, and expertise, but gained access to the capital needed to launch a voyage. Together, their partnership created a balance of risk and reward. This model allowed for profitable ventures without forcing one person to shoulder all the burden. The investor contributed funds to purchase ships, crews, and cargo, while the merchant took on the operational challenge of navigating the seas and conducting the trade. It was a practical solution to the high costs and high risks that came with expanding global commerce. At the center of these agreements were clear contracts, written, witnessed, and legally binding, spelling out exactly how profits would be divided. This structure ensured that both parties were committed to the success of the voyage. In a world of uncertain seas and unpredictable markets, these contracts provided a foundation of trust and accountability. The process began with the investor's capital contribution. This financial backing was essential for outfitting ships, purchasing valuable cargo, and hiring skilled crews to brave the treacherous routes to the east. Once funded, the merchant adventurer prepared for departure. Ships were loaded with goods destined for trade, and the merchant set sail, ready to navigate foreign waters and negotiate in unfamiliar markets. These voyages were far from guaranteed. Storms, piracy, and unpredictable market conditions constantly threatened the success of the journey. But for those willing to take the risk, the potential rewards were enormous. If the voyage succeeded, profits were shared according to the terms of the contract. Both investor and merchant benefited, one from financial return, the other from the successful execution of trade. The Commenda system didn't just fund voyages, it introduced early forms of diversification and liquidity. Investors could hold stakes in several voyages at once, spreading their risk across multiple expeditions. This marked a significant evolution in financial thinking, as capital could now be distributed strategically rather than tied to a single venture. Rather than placing all their money into a single journey, commendators could invest smaller amounts into multiple partnerships, increasing their chances of success, even if some voyages failed. This approach not only reduced risk, but encouraged steady participation in trade, fueling the broader Venetian economy. The idea of not putting all your eggs in one basket was a key innovation of the Commenda. It allowed even cautious investors to participate in high-risk trade without overexposing themselves to potential losses. Even more remarkable, Commenda contracts were transferable. Investors could sell their stake in a voyage to someone else, creating an informal secondary market. This flexibility made investing not only more accessible, but also more dynamic, allowing capital to circulate more freely within Venetian society. The Commenda's design offered investors both opportunity and protection, a glimpse of an investing world that was still centuries away from the rise of formal stock exchanges. Yet, its core principles, risk-sharing, diversification, and liquidity, remain fundamental to modern finance. But even with these financial tools, investing required more than capital and contracts. It required trust, and that trust was upheld, not by courts, but by the powerful merchant guilds. Venice's merchant guilds, including the influential Great Guild of Merchants and the Scuola Grande di San Marco, played a vital role in regulating the business environment. They provided the standards, oversight, and social networks necessary for the commenda system to thrive. These guilds enforced strict rules of conduct. They ensured that merchants followed ethical business practices, that contracts were honored, and that disputes were resolved fairly within the community. Their authority reinforced trust and accountability throughout Venetian trade. The guilds were also where partnerships were formed. They served as social hubs where investors met merchants, exchanged information, and assessed each other's reputations, a vital step in building trust before any voyage ever set sail. Education and apprenticeship were central to these guilds. They didn't just regulate business, they actively trained the next generation of merchants, ensuring the continuity, credibility, and long-term success of Venetian trade. Despite its innovation, the commenda had clear weaknesses. Its greatest strength, reliance on personal trust, was also its greatest vulnerability. When disputes arose, resolving them could be difficult, contentious, and far from predictable. Once a voyage left the port of Venice, the investor had little visibility into what was actually happening. There were no reliable updates, no audits, and no guarantees of honesty from the merchant operating on the far side of the world. This lack of transparency placed clear limits on how much the system could scale. While suitable for individual voyages, it became increasingly difficult to manage larger, more complex networks of trade and investment under these conditions. The commenda was a remarkable step forward, but the world was beginning to outgrow it. By the 1500s, Europe's appetite for exotic goods from the East had only grown stronger. Spices, silks, tea, porcelain, and precious metals were in constant demand, fueling competition among merchants and nations alike. The overland Silk Road was dangerous, slow, and inefficient. As a result, maritime routes quickly became the preferred channels for this booming trade. In response, cities like Hamburg, Paris, and Lisbon began experimenting with early forms of investment exchanges, offering opportunities to fund trading expeditions. But these systems remained fragmented, inconsistent, and still deeply rooted in personal networks. The stage was set. The world was ready for something more reliable, more scalable, and designed for the growing demands of global commerce. In the next section, we'll explore how one revolutionary enterprise, the Dutch East India Company, answered that call and changed the course of history. As the Renaissance gave way to the final decades of the 16th century, Europe's great trading cities scrambled to keep pace with the accelerating rhythm of global commerce. Hamburg dabbled in partnerships, Paris courted financiers, Lisbon chased fortunes across distant seas. But their efforts were patchwork, fragmented, unreliable, and still tied to fragile personal networks. The world didn't just need new ideas. It needed structure. It was ready for something new, something revolutionary. In 1602, with the spice trade fueling fierce competition and geopolitical tensions rising, the Dutch sparked a transformation that would reshape global finance. This wasn't just another trading company. This was the Dutch East India Company, the Verenigde Oostindische Compagnie, or VOC. It marked the moment when merchant adventures gave way to a new force in the world: organized, institutional capitalism. The VOC was born from both necessity and ambition. The Dutch government, determined to claim its share of the spice trade and eager to challenge Portuguese and Spanish dominance, granted the company a charter. This gave the VOC exclusive rights to trade with the East Indies. But it was more than just a trade monopoly. It was a declaration of global ambition. It was an early experiment in state-backed capitalism, built on corporate structures that would help shape the future of business for centuries to come. Several forces came together to shape the VOC. There was the desire to control an economic monopoly, the need to reduce the massive risks of maritime trade, and the broader ambition to expand Dutch influence on the world stage. In this blend of profit-seeking and national strategy, the VOC became something entirely new, a private company, but with the powers of a state. The company's structure was a bold innovation in itself. Unlike other trading ventures of the time, the VOC was formed as a joint stock company. Ordinary citizens, merchants, even city officials could buy shares. Those shares funded voyages across the world. In return, investors shared the profits. If a ship was lost, the risk was spread out. If it succeeded, everyone shared the rewards. For the first time, risk wasn't carried by a handful of merchants. It was shared by the public. But this wasn't just clever accounting. It was the beginning of public investment as we know it. The VOC opened the door for ordinary people to pool their money and fund ventures that, until then, were reserved for kings and empires. The Dutch hadn't just pioneered global trade. They had laid the foundation for the modern stock market. The VOC didn't just trade in spices. It expanded into textiles, precious metals, porcelain, tea, coffee, and more. Its investments went far beyond cargo. It built shipyards, fortified trading posts, and entire outposts overseas. And to protect these operations, the company maintained warships, secured trade routes, and stationed armies in foreign territories. It was self-contained, far-reaching, and remarkably modern for its time. The VOC's influence stretched across Asia. Batavia, modern-day Jakarta, became its eastern capital. Trading posts appeared across Sumatra, India, Japan, and beyond. Through a mix of diplomacy and dominance, the company controlled trade in the region and skillfully navigated the complexities of foreign politics. The VOC wasn't just a guest in these markets, it was a ruler. But all of this required more than just capital. It required liquidity. Investors needed a way to buy and sell their shares easily, without waiting for ships to return or fortunes to be made. Ownership itself had to become as fluid as the trade routes crisscrossing the seas. And so, the Dutch created something truly groundbreaking: the Amsterdam Stock Exchange. Opened in 1602, the exchange wasn't just a place to buy and sell. It was a marketplace for ideas, speculation, and wealth. Located inside Amsterdam's Koopmansbeurs, or Merchants' Hall, it featured a bustling trading floor, public bulletins, and organized trading sessions. This was the world's first structured, centralized stock exchange, built specifically for trading company shares. Traders used an open outcry system, shouting bids and waving their hands to signal offers. As the market grew, brokerage firms emerged to help investors navigate the noise and confusion. Soon, new financial tools appeared: futures contracts, options, and other innovations that were centuries ahead of their time. The environment was loud, fast-paced, and fueled by the promise of profit. This wasn't backroom gambling or informal deals anymore. It was capitalism, formalized. For the first time, markets were structured, regulated, and built to last. The Amsterdam Stock Exchange introduced the principles of transparency, liquidity, and accountability. But most importantly, it created trust among strangers. The exchange laid the foundation for modern financial markets, shareholder rights, public liquidity, and corporate governance. Anyone, from fishermen to nobles, could invest in global trade. They didn't have to sail the seas or fight for territory. All they needed was belief in the journey and in the potential returns. At its height, the VOC was worth more than any modern company today, even when adjusted for inflation. It employed thousands of people, operated hundreds of ships, and at times ruled over entire territories. It wasn't just a company, It was part corporation, part nation, part military power. A true forerunner of the multinational giants we see today. The VOC's success helped spark the Dutch Golden Age, a period of prosperity, exploration, and cultural achievement. Amsterdam became a global hub of wealth, art, and innovation, much of it fueled by the company's profits and pioneering business model. The VOC's influence extended beyond trade. It helped fund the painters, scientists, and architects whose work still shapes Dutch identity today. Even today, the echoes of the VOC's model are everywhere. Modern stock exchanges, shareholder structures, and investment tools all trace their roots back to those crowded halls in Amsterdam. Every time someone opens a brokerage account or trades a stock, they're participating in a system built on the ambitions of those way back in 1602. The foundations of investing, risk sharing, liquidity, and raising capital were all crystallized by the VOC. The Dutch East India Company and the Amsterdam Stock Exchange weren't just milestones, they were blueprints. Blueprints for how we invest, how we scale businesses, and how we grow economies. And it all started with a few investors, a bold charter, and a belief in something greater than gold, the power of shared risk and global vision. But the story of modern investing didn't stop in Amsterdam. Across the North Sea, England was preparing to take these ideas even further, with the creation of the London Stock Exchange. Welcome to London, an economic hive awakening from the shadows of war, monarchy, and trade rivalries. While the Dutch were building their fortunes in Amsterdam's Koopmansbeurs, across the Channel, a new capital was rising. Not just a capital of empire, but of finance. By the late 1600s, this was the beating heart of an empire on the rise. But unlike the grand, majestic trading halls of Amsterdam, London's financial revolution didn't begin with marble columns or gilded halls. It started with coffee. London's coffee houses were more than just places to enjoy a warm drink. They were the birthplace of ideas, deals, and risk. Famous gathering spots like Jonathan's, Garraway's, and Lloyd's weren't just popular. They were essential to the city's financial heartbeat. Inside these smoky, bustling rooms, merchants gathered to exchange gossip about trade, debate shipping news, and scribble down offers for shares and bonds on scraps of parchment or napkins. These were not quiet lounges. They were chaotic hubs of speculation, where fortunes were made or lost by the hour. Out of this energetic clamor emerged a new figure in financial history, the stock jobber. Unlike traditional merchants, these jobbers didn't deal in cargo. They dealt in securities. They specialized entirely in buying and selling stocks and bonds, holding inventories ready to match buyers with sellers at a moment's notice. These jobbers weren't just participating in the market, they were fueling it. Their constant trading activity was the engine behind a growing marketplace, one that was inching ever closer to becoming something truly revolutionary. As trading in government bonds and company shares exploded in popularity, especially in the wake of England's military ventures, the financial activity swirling around London began to outgrow the casual environment of coffee houses. Chaos bred opportunity, but it also bred confusion, speculation, and scandal. Fraudsters weaved through crowds. Misinformation sparked panics, and the absence of structure made many investors uneasy. In 1773, British Parliament decided that this growing frenzy could no longer be left entirely unchecked. They passed the Regulation of the Stock Exchange Act, signaling a turning point in English finance. Later that same year, a group of traders secured a leased room on Sweeting's Alley, a quiet corridor in the City of London, and named it the Stock Exchange Subscription Room. Though still humble, this marked the first official step toward transforming London's stock trade from a caffeine-fueled bazaar into a credible financial institution. It wasn't yet the polished, structured exchange we know today, but the foundation was being laid. What began as casual chatter over coffee was now taking its first steps toward becoming a formal marketplace, one with rules, expectations, and eventually global influence. The decisive moment came in 1801 when a determined group of brokers and traders signed a formal agreement to create a structured, regulated, and transparent marketplace for securities. That agreement gave birth to what would become the London Stock Exchange. A year later, in 1802, the exchange found its first true home, Capel Court, nestled in the heart of London's financial district. It was from this building that the LSE began operating with purpose, not as a room simply rented by traders, but as a proper financial institution with systems, rules, and integrity. The transition was monumental. What had started in the smoky clamor of coffeehouses had transformed into a dignified, organized exchange, one that was already attracting the attention of investors across the British Empire. Among the many milestones in those early years, none carried more symbolic weight than the first official listing on the exchange, the Bank of England. This decision wasn't made lightly. Founded in 1694, the Bank of England was already Britain's most trusted financial institution. It had earned the nickname Banker to the Government for its role in managing public funds, especially during times of war. Its reputation was built on trust, stability, and its close ties to the British Crown. By listing its stock on the exchange, the bank set the tone. Its inclusion gave immediate credibility to the London Stock Exchange and encouraged other institutions to follow. Investors flocked to trade Bank of England shares, knowing those shares were backed by the power and prestige of the state. It was a calculated move. Listing a government-linked institution first made the exchange appear safe and respectable. The inclusion of the bank sparked a domino effect. Financial institutions, public utilities, and later industrial companies all turned to the LSE to raise capital. England's economic machine was beginning to take off. Walking through the London Stock Exchange in 1802, one would find a striking contrast to the digital exchanges of today. There were no screens, no flashing tickers, no colorful lights. Instead, chalkboards lined the walls, quill pens rested on desks, and heavy ledgers were filled with handwritten transactions. Trading happened face-to-face. Brokers huddled in tightly packed circles, shouting offers and counter-offers, while scribes recorded each deal. Membership to the exchange was exclusive. Only licensed brokers could step onto the floor, all bound by the LSE's growing rulebook of conduct and procedures. The types of securities traded were still fairly narrow. Beyond government bonds and Bank of England stock, the exchange had begun listing a small but growing number of private businesses, especially those involved in shipping, mining, and insurance. The scope was limited, but the ambition was enormous. There were formal trading hours, enforced protocol, and for the first time, clarity. Investors finally had a place to buy and sell shares with confidence, knowing the process would be fair and enforced. It was the beginning of something global. The London Stock Exchange was no longer just a marketplace for Britain. It was becoming a financial gateway to the world. Capital raised here would ripple across continents, funding exploration, trade, and industry. The decisions made within its walls would shape economies far beyond England's borders. It was the start of London's transformation into a truly global financial center. As Britain expanded its imperial influence, the London Stock Exchange grew alongside it. The capital raised within the walls of Capel Court helped fund massive infrastructure projects across the empire. Railways in India, shipping routes to the Caribbean, and industrial complexes in Canada and Australia. From copper mines to telegraph cables, the reach of the LSE stretched far beyond the cobblestone streets of London. British investors were financing the world and collecting dividends in return. The exchange had become more than a marketplace. It was now a central mechanism of British power, fueling the empire's economic dominance and laying the groundwork for a modern, interconnected world. Over the centuries, the London Stock Exchange continued to evolve. It outgrew Capel Court, moved into larger, more advanced spaces, and eventually transitioned into the digital age at Paternoster Square. From handwritten ledgers to algorithmic trading platforms, the mechanics may have changed, but the mission stayed the same: connecting capital to opportunity. The legacy of the LSE isn't just in its size or its longevity, it's in its blueprint. It proved that finance could be organized, that markets could be trusted, that when built on transparency and structure, economic systems could power nations. What began with coffee, conversation, and chaos had grown into one of the most respected financial institutions in the world. As the London Stock Exchange solidified its place as the financial heart of the empire, its influence stretched across continents. The capital raised within its walls powered global trade, built infrastructure, and helped shape the modern economy. But even as London's markets fueled prosperity across the empire, change was quietly stirring on the other side of the Atlantic. In the wake of independence, the United States was searching for its own financial identity. It had ambition, it had resources, and it had an urgent need for capital. Unlike London, the United States lacked the centuries of financial tradition and institutions that Europe had spent generations building. But it shared the same desire: to create something enduring, to establish an economic system that could match its bold political experiment, and fuel its place on the world stage. And in the years ahead, that system would take shape. Across the cobblestone streets of Lower Manhattan, a new financial powerhouse was quietly preparing to emerge. An exchange that would not only rival London, but in time, surpass it in global influence. It would be called the New York Stock Exchange, and its story was just beginning. As Europe's great empires carved global trade routes and formalized their stock markets, a new force was quietly stirring along the western edge of the Atlantic. The United States was young, raw, ambitious, and desperate to define its place in the world. It lacked the grandeur of Amsterdam's Koopmansbeurs and the prestige of London's Capel Court. But it possessed something just as powerful: hunger. The rebellious colonies had become a nation, but that nation ran on dreams, and dreams required capital. Entrepreneurs needed backers, roads, bridges, and ports needed funding, and investors needed a marketplace they could trust. Yet in the late 1700s, America had no grand exchange, no marble columns, no official rule books. Just a narrow street in Lower Manhattan, shaded by a lone buttonwood tree. And beneath its branches, the seeds of a financial empire were quietly being planted. On May 17, 1792, beneath the leafy canopy of that buttonwood tree on Wall Street, 24 stockbrokers and merchants signed a pact that would shape the future of global finance. Known as the Buttonwood Agreement, it was America's answer to Europe's coffeehouse chaos, a bold attempt to bring order to the whirlwind of buying and selling securities. The terms were simple. The brokers agreed to trade only with one another and to charge a standard commission. In doing so, they created a trusted circle, an exclusive marketplace governed by shared rules, not whispers in taverns or backroom deals. Though modest in appearance, the Buttonwood Agreement did more than standardize transactions. It inspired confidence. It set expectations. And most importantly, it laid the foundation, one that would become the bedrock of the New York Stock Exchange. In the years that followed, this small band of brokers moved from beneath the tree to a rented room at 40 Wall Street. There, in candlelit chambers, the New York Stock and Exchange Board was born. At first, the listings were few: government bonds, a handful of banks, and several insurance firms. But even then, one name stood out: the Bank of New York, the first official listing on the exchange. Founded by Alexander Hamilton, the Bank of New York embodied the vital link between private enterprise and public trust. Its listing was more than symbolic. It was a declaration that America's markets would be built on integrity and transparency, values desperately needed in a land still finding its economic footing. As America expanded westward, so too did its ambitions. The exchange began to reflect the nation itself, restless, energetic, and bursting with possibility. In the early 1800s, the New York Stock Exchange was still informal. Deals were sealed with handshakes. Disputes were handled personally. There was no regulatory oversight, only trust and reputation. But the country was changing fast. Steam-powered locomotives shrank distances. Telegraphs shrank time. And new industries emerged by the day. The NYSE grew beyond banking, listing companies in transportation, manufacturing, mining, and communication. America's Industrial Revolution wasn't just built in factories. It was financed on the trading floor of Wall Street. By 1867, the exchange formally adopted the name New York Stock Exchange, a recognition that this was no longer a provincial marketplace, but a rising global force. The name changed, but the purpose remained the same: to provide a centralized, trustworthy space for investment. Though still private and somewhat exclusive, the NYSE began developing systems to ensure order, assigned trading hours, broker badges, and a growing commitment to transparency, echoing the structure London had pioneered decades earlier. From a buttonwood tree to a marble hall, the New York Stock Exchange was quickly becoming the beating heart of American capitalism. The second half of the 19th century became a golden age for American industry, and the New York Stock Exchange was at its center. Steel magnates, oil tycoons, and railroad barons took their companies public, flooding the exchange with new listings and staggering volumes of trade. Wall Street became more than a street. It became a symbol of wealth, speculation, innovation, and risk. Newspapers printed ticker quotes. The trading bell became a daily ritual. And for many, owning a share on the New York Stock Exchange became the ultimate sign of progress. Even amid panics, collapses, and scandals, the New York Stock Exchange remained resilient, its rules, systems, and oversight evolving with every crisis to strengthen stability and safeguard trust. The rise of the New York Stock Exchange left an undeniable mark on the nation. What began as whispered trades beneath a buttonwood tree had transformed into marble halls, ringing bells, and the heartbeat of American capitalism. But this wasn't just the story of Wall Street. It was the latest chapter in a much older human tradition. From the earliest days, people have found ways to exchange value, to invest in the future. Ancient merchants pooled resources for trade expeditions. Farmers bartered grain. Coins were minted. Contracts were written. At every step, civilization moved forward because people dared to believe that through trust, collaboration, and risk, something greater could be built. The New York Stock Exchange became more than just a marketplace. It became the modern embodiment of that timeless belief. The 20th and 21st centuries brought even greater transformation. No longer were trades scribbled on ledgers and shouted across crowded floors. They were executed at light speed by computers, servers, and algorithms operating in microseconds. Brokers gave way to online platforms. Investment banks built towering headquarters. And increasingly, it wasn't humans, but complex code that determined trades in the blink of an eye. But despite all the technology, the heart of the system remained familiar: trust, structure, and opportunity. A marketplace where people from anywhere, farmers, immigrants, factory workers, students, could buy into an idea, a company, a future. Today, the New York Stock Exchange stands as the largest and most powerful exchange in the world. Its influence stretches across every continent. Its standards have become templates for exchanges around the globe. Other American exchanges have emerged: NASDAQ, Amex, regional boards, but none rival the legacy or gravity of the NYSE. It remains Wall Street's crown jewel, a marketplace built not just on wealth, but on centuries of ideas, evolution, and human collaboration. As we reflect on Wall Street's rise, we can't help but trace the entire arc of human progress. Thousands of years ago, our ancestors foraged and bartered, swapping tools, grain, and social credit just to survive. It was slow, crude, and filled with friction. Over time, humanity found better ways. From the clay tablets of Mesopotamia to the coinage of Lydia, trade evolved. From Greek naval loans to Roman state contracts, from Venetian commenda partnerships to Dutch stock shares, each chapter brought more structure, more trust, more opportunity. And with the rise of the New York Stock Exchange, we saw it all come together. America didn't invent finance, but it refined it. It democratized it. It made investing aspirational, a gateway for everyday citizens to participate in the nation's success. Every share is a story. Every contract is a leap of faith. And every marketplace, from the scrolls of Mesopotamia to the maritime ventures of Venice, the merchant halls of Amsterdam and London, and the roaring floor of the New York Stock Exchange, is a living mirror of our collective hopes, fears, and unshakable belief that tomorrow can be better than today. These exchanges are not just financial structures. They are monuments to our enduring human instinct, not merely to survive, but to build. I hope you have enjoyed this journey through the historical path of finance. From the earliest barter systems to bustling marketplaces, from the birth of stock exchanges to the skyscrapers of Wall Street, we've explored how human ambition, innovation, and collaboration built the foundations of modern investing. This story isn't just about markets or money. It's about people, ideas, and the unshakable belief that progress is possible. Thank you for walking this path with us. I hope this look back at where we've been has inspired you to take confident steps toward where you're headed as an investor, a learner, and a participant in shaping the financial future.